Mario Kart 64!
It all begins with a normal Abney stream. Abney, for those uneducated in karting, is the current world record holder for Mario Kart 64's all-cup speedruns. Now there are two categories for these speedruns, one that's for losers, and one that allows for the largest skips you have ever seen. Abney was currently trying to optimize the latter. Look at this guy, just enjoying Mario Kart, unaware of the encounter he would soon have with the mysterious sage, who would impart new wisdom onto the Mario Kart community. Ready yourself for the grand entrance!
Can you send me a video of a large discovery? Post it on Discord? I don't know.
Okay, so Abney's reaction to the claim was a little dismissive at first. But how can you blame him? This was someone completely random, claiming to have made a major discovery in a game where the run was thought to be pretty stable. But it turns out that the discovery Forrest had made was not only large, but it was big. It was huge. It was giant. It was massive. It was monstrous. It was enormous. It was humongous. It was colossal. It was voluminous. It was gargantuan. It was astronomical. It was It was a really big discovery. And it serves as a race start boost of the beginning into what has to be the craziest week in Mario Kart 64 speedrunning history. The discovery was a new skip for the course Royal Raceway. Royal Raceway was already no stranger to skips. The ones most utilized involved driving off the road to hit a specific polygon that was mapped to a bridge, resulting in you being placed upon the bridge, and the other involved angling the boost that you would receive from the launch pad with a drift. This would place you on the road close by where you hit the water, skipping a portion of the track. But the new trick found would cut out a much larger chunk of the track. So here's what Forrest found, how to do it, and how it works. Start by picking the green dog or the girl one, as they are the fastest characters in the game. Well, Toad is also the fastest, but he's annoying, so don't choose him. By driving backwards and off the road in the location Forrest specified in this image, you would be able to manipulate the game's checkpoint system. The game is constantly updating your location. In order to do this, the game will take where it last knew you were and take an area around that. The way the game gets this area is through using checkpoints that are placed roughly on the middle of the track. First, the game will decide which checkpoint you are closest to based on your distance from it. Then the game will take a certain number of checkpoints ahead of and behind your checkpoint and check the area around that. Then next time it looks for your location, it will look in that area. Problem is, the area doesn't go very far backwards because they didn't expect you to be driving backwards. They put latitude there to tell you not to do it, so why would you? The game will look 7 checkpoints ahead, but only 2 behind. Another thing to note is that every track is broken up into sections. Checkpoints are assigned to one of these sections, and when the game looks for you based on these checkpoints, it will only look in the section that the checkpoints are assigned to. Additionally, crossing over this polygon seam will take you into a new section of the track. Keeping in mind that the game assigns you to a checkpoint based on which one you're closest to, even if you were to move towards this polygon seam, you are still closest to the same checkpoint, so the area the game checks doesn't move. And as checkpoints are generally placed on the road, even if you were to go 2 checkpoints back from the one you are assigned to, they would still be in the same section. This means the game isn't checking for you in this new section. Thus, crossing this polygon seam causes the tracking system to break. The game can't find you with its regular methods, so it performs a more rigorous search to locate you. Put yourself in the game's shoes. Imagine if you saw a green dog driving, then disappear and reappear. Would you remember where you last saw it? Yeah, and so does the game. When it finds you, it writes your location down to memory. From here you have to drive back on the track and try your best to stick to it to avoid updating this memory. Then you need to get the best item in the game. Now that you're geared up, you can drive back to the starting line. When you cross the starting line here, you move to the first lap. Before this point, you were on lap 0. If you were to drive back over the line, the game would take away your lap, and you would go back to lap 0. From there, you are able to set up to launch yourself on top of this wall with the cool red shells you got. This causes the game to mess up. The game will send in Lakitu as a dog catcher to place the green dog back where he belongs. But where is that exactly? Well, usually the game can tell where to put you because the spot that you went on a bounds at is part of a section, and it will just send you back to that section. That's exactly how the skips from earlier worked. One thought you were on the bridge, so it put you on the bridge, and the other thought you had driven off from the road right here, so it put you back on the road. But these walls are a little different. They aren't properly mapped to a section as they didn't expect you to be able to get up here. So instead they ask the memory where to send you. So the memory says, oh, the green dog, I saw them back over in that section. So then Lakitu the dog catcher says, good enough for me, I don't get paid enough. And then they dump you over there. I mentioned that when you drive over the starting line, you usually lose a lap. Well, the finish line is only active if you are within a certain distance of it. And because the game thinks you are in this area, you're far enough away from the finish line for it to not be active. Therefore, moving back across it will not take away a lap. So suddenly, you're at the end of lap 1, and driving over the finish line puts you into lap 2. This can be repeated until the race is over, and you completely avoid a huge majority of the track. With this strategy, Forrest managed to drive the course in just over a minute, coming in at 1:01:18. Although because he played as Toad, it didn't count as a new world record. Well, also because it was played on emulator. With the use of his trusty Game Shark,
Game Shark, turn on. Come on, Game Shark.
Abney was able to replicate this skip himself.
Oh my god, it doesn't break. This is crazy, dude.
After this came hitting the trick with red shells.
Yo, it worked! Let's go!
On the first run where Abney managed to hit this trick twice in a row, he decided to finish the race to get a time estimate for if he were to miss the trick once in a run. The resulting 1:21:30 was a one-player Grand Prix world record. However, this was quite possibly the shortest held world record of all time, as during the celebration of the world record, another speedrunner, DNTN, stuck their time in the chat, a 1:04:37. And not long after, they posted the video of the first official run to hit the trick 3 out of 3 times. Then it was Abney's turn to hit a 3 out of 3. Abney managed a 56:01. This run was so fast that it actually managed to beat the task, yo! The tool-assisted speedrun featured several different tricks, including CPU jumps that required luck and an above-human amount of skill to perform. But the new strat managed to make it outdated. This time, the record would stand for longer than 10 seconds. But not much longer. Right before he was about to go offline, DNTN once again appeared to share another time, a 53:26. At the time of recording, this is where the record stands. Now what's left is to incorporate this trick into a 150cc skip speedrun. The current world record has a really fast Royal Raceway with a 1:40:09. Comparing the world record split to his best split, we can see Abney has done the track about 1.43 seconds faster. This gives us a best time of 1:38:66, which is almost certainly the best time out of anyone. Considering the times we have mentioned so far, in addition to a 1:47:40 driven by Abney as an example of what time he would get after hitting only one of 3 red shell lap skips, we can create a chart showing the time difference between all these scenarios. This shows that as long as the trick can be hit twice, time will be saved. Additionally, if Abney were to match his 3 out of 3 time in a run, we would expect him to save around 44 seconds on world record. On top of all of this, there are leaderboards for individual tracks in Grand Prix mode. These are split into 2 categories. There's fastest time to complete all 3 laps, or 3-lap time, and fastest time to complete a single lap, or flap time. Don't laugh. That's really what it's called. So what makes these runs cool is that they feature some strats that you normally wouldn't see in regular skips runs. For example, there is this trick found and executed by Miles, where you hit a second player with a star to be launched to the bridge above. A trick used in both the flap and 3-lap world records before this week with the most hardcore name in the game, Gun Style, was found by L3W Gaming, formerly known as the Young Gun. The trick utilizes the strategic placement of a second player and a mushroom to get a huge jump off of them. This is similar to the CPU jumps used in the TAS. With this jump, you are able to cross the finish line and complete a lap. Upon touching the ground out of bounds, the game will put you back where you performed the jump. Because this is far enough away from the finish line will deactivate. Therefore, moving back across it does not take away a lap. Although Gun Style was first found by L3W Gaming, it was performed on a 300cc emulator version of the game. The first to perform it on console in 150cc was Etch. They uploaded their second time hitting this trick, netting them an 821. Abney was next to improve the world record. Finding if Gun Style was done on the left side of the finish line, you would be placed slightly closer to the finish line, allowing you to finish the lap quicker. Abney was able to get a 725, then a 719. Finally, L3W was able to capture the record for the strat he discovered with the 708. L3W was also able to hit the trick multiple times in one run for the 3-lap record, getting a 109.35. Although the initial 121.30 by Abney utilizing the new strat did not beat this time, every run mentioned after that did. That means the new 3-lap record is the 53.26 set by DNTN. Because the new strat placed you so much closer to the finish line, there was a chance for improvement in the flap record as well. L3W once again set out to improve his time. The jump to the wall could be made faster by utilizing a blue shell in first place. Red shells target the player ahead of you, so in order to hit them you have to throw them behind yourself, then intercept them as they pass by. A blue shell, however, targets whoever is in first, so using a blue shell in first place causes the shell to target you. This way you can always be driving forward. From there, a star is needed to achieve the fastest possible speed to reach the finish line.
Oh shit, did I do it? Yo, I did it! Let's go! 698, new world record, woo!
L3W was able to get a 698, lowering the record by 1/10 of a second. Although the 53.26 3-lap and 698 flap were both great runs, they likely will be lowered even further. The reason that the records haven't been lowered is because another large skip drew attention away from Royal Raceway and over to the most iconic track in Mario Kart 64.
It's called a road, it's called a rainbow road. It is a road that you go.
Oh, wrong game. Switch the music. Rainbow Road already has a storied history of skips. It has the initial track jump, the spiral jump, the third and first place CPU jumps, and finally the green shell lap skip. However, yet another way to abuse red shells for lap skips was found by a casual player, Garrett Gressley. Garrett claims to have made this discovery around 20 years ago when he had hit a friend with a shell and witnessed them skip a lap. From there, he replicated the glitch in 2-player mode, then used a red shell to replicate in 1-player mode. Garrett recently reached out to the community to see if this strat had been known. Garrett's assumption before then was that the green shell strat being used was superior, as green shells were a more common item. The green shell lap skip required hitting a green shell far away from the finish line. In midair, you would cross over the finish line and move to the next lap. Upon landing out of bounds, you would be moved back to where you had left the track from hitting the green shell. Because this is far enough away from the finish line for it to not be active, the lap would not be taken away when placed back. However, the problem with the strat is that to get a green shell, you must be in between first and third place. Because you needed to turn around to get an item box, you would be in dead last, making it impossible to get a green shell at the beginning of the race. Therefore, you would need to utilize a less optimal strat on your first lap up until the item boxes. Knowing that issue, let's look at the video Garrett shared. First, he launched himself off the stage with red shells and moved past the finish line in mid-air to increment his lap from lap 0 to lap 1. When placed back on the stage, Garrett repeated the steps, this time finishing lap 1 and moving into lap 2. So what exactly is going on in this video and how is it set up? For a full example, we will look at Climatee's first 3 out of 3 recorded example, a 1:26.14, a new world record for the one-player Grand Prix 3-lap. First, turn around and get your red shells. Then use them to send yourself flying out of bounds by the finish line. You would then pass the finish line in midair and move on to the next lap. After a while, the game will map you to a new area of the track. The reason this occurs is because, as previously mentioned, the game will track your progress by which checkpoint you are closest to. You may think this would be a point close to the finish line, but the game is too big brain. It doesn't view the map as a 2D image, it uses all 3 coordinates of your location and of the checkpoints to locate you. It turns out the game actually thinks you are over here, in a portion of Rainbow Road's spiral, because its height is so much lower than where you left the track. You can visualize this by watching the spiral jump. The spiral juts out towards the finish line and is located much further down. This is far enough away from the finish line to make it deactivate. While the finish line was deactivated, you would then defy physics by reversing back over it. Reversing in midair would actually move you backwards, as demonstrated here in the skies of Luigi Raceway by Dead Hamster. Fitting that we would see a deceased animal now occupying the heavens. Because you cross over the finish line when it's not active, you never lose a lap. Upon landing, the game will place you back where you had left the track, bars. From there, you are free to repeat this until the race is over. After Climati's run, 2 familiar faces would reappear to try out the new skip and lower the newly set record. Abney first tested the glitch to see it in action.
This strat. I'm in first.
Later in the stream, Abney managed to get a run hitting the trick 3 out of 3 times. This amounted to a 1:24.60. Before Abney was able to do this, DNTN had managed to hit a 1:20.29. DNTN managed to beat this time once more, uploading a 1:19.07 the next day. This is where the one-player Grand Prix record sits. This trick will also allow for a large amount of time save in skips runs. Considering that in Abney's latest world record run, he got a 1:50.26, and that time was 9.56 seconds off of his best time, we can estimate that the best Rainbow Road he's had is a 1:40.70. To achieve this time, Abney very likely used a CPU jump at the beginning of the track and then green shell skips. Abney's world record run used the normal jump rather than the CPU jump. This is the more typical strategy, as the CPU jump is extremely difficult. For these comparison points, it seems that the red shell strat saves around 20 seconds on the CPU jump, and it saves 30 seconds when compared to the regular jump strat. This means that the world record could save 30 seconds by using the trick. On August 7th, Climati became the first person to hit this trick in a real skips run. Although their execution wasn't perfect and they had to resort to a green shell skip for the last lap, they still managed to save 18 seconds and PB in the run. Going forward, we will see more runners incorporating this skip and saving time. You may have noticed that I mentioned that these are one-player Grand Prix world records. Unfortunately, there is no opportunity to lower the current overall Grand Prix skips times, as was done on Royal Raceway. The current strat utilizes 2 players just as before, although this one isn't as flashy. Here, you simply bump off of Bowser to be thrown over the track. You cross the finish line, moving up a lap, and then are moved back to your original position while the finish line is deactivated. This places you closer to the finish line than the green shells, so you're able to finish the lap for a flat time, or repeat to finish the race and get a 3-lap time. This trick was found by Miles, and the current records were achieved by Abney. The flap record is safe, as although you are placed closer to the finish line, you trigger the lap much earlier on the red shell skip. So much earlier that the time you spend falling after triggering the lap and being carried by Lakitu is greater than the record. The 3-lap record will likely continue to stand as well, as although the current time isn't completely optimized, there doesn't seem to be another 7 seconds of time saved. So that's everything that happened with Rainbow Road in the week. Although the 1:19.07 could be improved, we once again find that the record would not be iterated upon because another discovery would come out. But I'll address that later. Thankfully though, there were still other significant findings in the week. Forrest was able to uncover a new task strat in Sherbet land. Turns out that the iceberg out there in the water has more use than being home to a very large penguin. If you were able to get out to it, or at least get really close to it, you could store your position in memory. With a golden mushroom and blue shell, you could make it just under the iceberg, and this would store into memory the spot where you left the track. Then back at the finish line, with the star and just a bit of fairy magic, you could get enough speed to be able to hop over the wall by the finish line. This wall is similar to the wall in Royal Raceway in that it is not mapped to a section. Because of this, the game can't find where you are, so it checks the memory. And because the area stored in the memory was where we left the track to jump to the iceberg, that's where the game will think we are. The finish line would then deactivate as it thinks you are far away from it. This way you can cross the finish line without losing a lap. Then you can drive forward across the finish line to get the lap counted. Forrest shared that the part of the wall that is unmapped is actually a little bit after the finish line. Because of this, you're required to cross the finish line and get above the wall on the same frame. Essentially then, you are crossing the finish line on the same frame the game maps you back to the iceberg. That's why a star is utilized here, to make sure that you are covering as much distance as possible in a single frame. Unfortunately, the strat wasn't really humanly viable. It was also quite slow and required a good amount of luck. Although in its current state it isn't useful, I wouldn't be surprised if it led to something further down the line. Forrest was able to find yet another strat that utilized a trick similar to the one that was shown on Rainbow Road. On Yoshi Valley, you were able to use red shells to knock yourself over the fence. After falling a certain distance, the game would map you to somewhere else on the course. You can see this jump in position on the progress view in the middle of the video. This would deactivate the finish line, allowing you to reverse over it without losing a lap. This could be a new possible lap skip, but in its current state it would not be able to outpace the current Yoshi Valley fast strat, so unfortunately it won't be used. On August 8th, Forrest discovered another strat, this time for the flap of Wario Stadium. The strat was something that David Wan, an older member of the Mario Kart community, mentioned in an old post from 2010. David claimed to have hit the strat all the way back in 1997, but he was unable to replicate it. Usually on Wario Stadium, to trigger a lap, you have to be on the side of the wall where the finish line is. However, David claims that he was able to trigger the Wario Stadium lap from the other side of the wall. He worked with Weatherton on August 6th in 2007 to try to recreate this with a task, but to no success. Later, they shared the result of this attempt with this YouTube video. The working version that Forrest found looked very similar. On the side of the wall opposite to the finish line, you angle yourself towards a very specific point on the wall. Just before hitting the wall, you shift your angle a little bit to the left, and once you hit the wall, you jump. If your angle, speed, timing of the jump, and position hitting the wall all align, then you will jump up on the wall and sort of glide along it before entering a tumble state. It turns out that during this tumble you were able to get the lap to count from the other side. Once the lap is triggered, you're on the clock for the next lap. Hit the wall once as you continue to build speed. Then on the second hit, jump and angle yourself to the left to cross the finish line. The difference between Weatherton's original task and Forrest's task that made it not work is because Weatherton used Toad, and because Forrest completed the first lap up until that point non-shortcut, whereas Weatherton hopped over on the first jump. While this appears to be the difference, it is uncertain why this is the case. This task improves upon the previous Wario Stadium shortcut flap task by 0.06 of a second. The old task used a strat similar to how current Wario Stadium world record flaps complete the lap. First, angle yourself so that when you jump over the wall, you trigger the lap as late as possible. Once you land on the ground, perform an A-B spin by holding both the A and B button, then rotating the control stick in the direction that you want to turn. When facing the wall, fire a mushroom and ram the wall once. On the second hit, you'll be moving fast enough to hop back over. Crossing the finish line ends the lap. Because Bowser has the fastest acceleration out of an A-B spin, he is actually the optimal character choice for this short lap. The current record is a 231 on PAL, or 192 on NTSC by partial discoverer of the Weather Tanko and man with the funnest name in the world, Greg Inatenko. Greg Inatenko. Greg Inatenko. Greg Inatenko. This time was later tied by Abney. You will notice that Greg's run is a higher time at 231. But that's because it was played on the PAL version of the game. The PAL version actually runs at about 5/6 the speed of NTSC, so the same run takes more time. It's basically like playing in slow motion. If the 231 on PAL was converted to NTSC, it would be a 192, so the runs are the exact same and they tie on the leaderboards. These runs were a near perfect execution of the strat, only 0.04 of a second off the task. With the new strat being challenging to say the least, and only a little faster, it's questionable if it will be used at all. But the strat is now being looked at for the potential of becoming the new flap strat. Both Jaden and Zuki have managed to hit the delayed tumble and trigger the lap from the other side, though neither were then able to perform the jump back over the wall to finish the newly triggered lap. Zuki reported that getting the delayed tumble felt like luck, which is understandable as it's dependent on so many things. They also said that getting the jump back over the wall after the delayed tumble feels more skill dependent, but it's extremely difficult. Zuki was also able to find 2 new spots for setting up the delayed tumble, so there's hope that a more consistent setup will be found. Regardless of whether or not this leads to a new record, it still wraps up a 23-year-old mystery. Both Weatherton and David appear in the comments of the video. Happy to see the mystery finally resolved. Outside of the new shortcut craziness, there was still a lot going on. Hopefully you are familiar with one of the most popular and most difficult tricks in Mario Kart 64 speedrunning, the Weather Tanko. If not, you may want to watch Summoning Salt's Choco Mountain World Record History video. What you need to know is that the trick is insanely difficult, and this week VAJ managed to hit it 3 out of 3 times in a run and improve the NTSC World Record to 1465. VAJ was quite excited about it. Headphones warning, by the way.
Here you go, 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 here you go!
I think it says a lot about the week that this was just a piece of it, and not the headlining event. The week doesn't even end here. I mentioned that I would talk about this later. I didn't even cover the biggest discovery of the week. I was planning on covering it, but at the pace I was making this video, it was taking me a while, and the material's becoming older and older, so I wanted to put something out there. But that's okay, you don't have to wait to hear about it, and in fact you might have already. R. White Goose, a top member of the GoldenEye speedrunning organization The Elite and content creator, already has a video out on it. A lot of stuff went down with Toad's Turnpike, check it out. Goose's video goes a little past a week of the original Mario Raceway lap skip discovery. Speaking of things that have happened after this week, Forrest improved the Sherbet land task, DNTN improved the Royal Raceway 150cc Grand Prix 3-lap time, and Abney got a new world record. Also, subscribe to Forrest, give them some love. I guarantee you that they will be finding more crazy stuff, and you can peep that on their channel. Their discoveries are really what set this off, and it got the whole community active. It was just amazing to watch, and for that, I say thanks. That's all I got. Thanks to everyone for watching. Peace.